Knoxville. Call the man in Knoxville, Jimmy Hyams, who joins us now at Jimmy Hyams on Twitter, host of the greatest named sports talk show in America. It's called Sports Talk on WNML Radio. Jimmy, how in the world are you doing, man? How is the overall mood in Knoxville right now?
Oh, it's not good. But I'll say this, and here's something that folks need to keep in mind. The more you win, the harder it is to accept defeat when it occurs. In other words, when you get close to a World Series and you lose in the divisional playoffs, if you get close to an SEC title and you lose it, when you get close to a Super Bowl and you fall in a conference championship game, it's harder because you're that close to it. So what Tennessee fans need to keep in mind is this has been a great season. Nobody expected Tennessee. Well, very few people expected Tennessee to be 9-2 at this point with wins over LSU and Alabama. So you got to keep it in perspective, as hard as that is. But it's still hard for a lot of folks to accept losing to South Carolina like that.
What is going on with the whole thing with Banks? I mean, it's just going to be speculated on until I guess it's going to be speculated on forever because I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. But what do you know about this deal?
Well, here's the truth. Here's what happened. Okay, I 100% believe this. On Monday, Jeremy Banks had an unexcused absence from practice. And there's a pretty good chance he was told right then, you're not playing this weekend. Then on Wednesday, there's a tee in the locker room, which is you're not supposed to step on it. And he stepped on the tee, and Hendon Hooker called him out, told him to do 10 push-ups. And Banks took exception to that. They had a bit of a disagreement. I do think Joe Milton might have interceded to break them up, but I don't think he got in a big fight with Jeremy Banks like some people are saying. So those two instances occurred. I do believe my sources on that. Now, one or both of those led to his suspension for the game Saturday. I don't know if he's going to be suspended for the Vanderbilt game or not. Coach Heupel's not saying, at least I don't think he said. But those two instances occurred, and one or both of those are the reasons he didn't play against South Carolina.
So where did the NIL?
So he got suspended?
Where did the NIL part of this? There's speculation that maybe some of this fight was about NIL money. Is there anything to that then?
I'm told that's 100% false.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with it. Look, I think we both know you can't believe everything you read on Twitter, the internet, whatever. And I looked into that, and I was told that's 100% false. That was not the issue. That's what I was told.
So okay, let me go back. You said it was two different incidents. So he got suspended for stepping on the tee in the locker room. One of the leaders addressed him. He's one of the leaders on the defense. Maybe they got in some push shoving or scrum or whatever. And so he got suspended for the game for that.
No, I said also on Monday it was an unexcused absence from practice.
Right.
So it was one or both of those instances that led to his suspension.
Jimmy Hyams, our guest here on Blaine and Mickey at Jimmy Hyams on Twitter.
Well, I guess with that being said, that still was no reason for them to come out flat unless we're talking about teenage kids. Let's say that Hooker is actually 24.
Yeah.
But emotions
Young
arise,
adult.
and maybe some of the players felt like both should have been suspended or both should play. And to me, that is the only answer to why the defense looked like that. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from South Carolina, but the defense hadn't looked like that all season, regardless if you have no pass rush, no elite secondary players, and they hadn't looked like that. They looked like they were playing at practice and not in an actual game. So what is your reasoning for why they look like that defensively?
I think every year a team has 2 or 3 games where they play poorly. Now, are you good enough to overcome it? Are you good enough to win when you play poorly? Georgia had that game at Missouri. Georgia was good enough to win it. Georgia might have had that game against Kent State, and they were good have to win it. Maybe they had it against Kentucky. Everybody has that game. I'll say this, though. There were flashes where the defenses played really good, Blaine, this year. There have been flashes where they didn't. I mean, Alabama scored 49 points on them. And so it was really, from the Tennessee perspective, it's hard to envision how in the world you could be that bad on defense for basically every series. South Carolina had 10 full possessions. I don't count taking a knee or the end of a half or a game. They scored 9 touchdowns out of those 10 possessions. That's 63 points. That's ridiculous. I tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of the defense that played against Purdue in the Music City Bowl, where they couldn't stop them and couldn't cover them and couldn't tackle them. So they just played very poorly in that game. I don't know if it had anything to do with Jeremy Banks not being there. Had he been there, would the defense have played better? Probably. Would they have won? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, I don't know if there was a friction between offense and defense. And, again, I've actually been told that when he had the unexcused absence on Monday from practice, I'd been told he was informed you're not going to play Saturday. So, but I can't 100% confirm that. So that's why I'm saying it's one or both instances that led to his suspension.
Do you think that's justifiable in that you get suspended for a game over stepping on the tee and not doing the push-ups?
No,
regardless of what happened between both players not knowing.
But that may not be why he was suspended, Blaine.
Right.
I've said this before. It might have been because he missed practice on Monday as an unexcused absence.
Right.
That might have been
what I'm getting at is when you have really elite players, the pendulum changes, as we all know, on how much you give forgiveness. Guess what? Nobody would have known he missed on Monday besides unless the coaches let it out. Right? So then you could say, well, he had an excused absence. So whatever the situation may have been, those two things to me doesn't equate to I'm suspending a player and he's not riding with the team. He was in an altercation, maybe was one of them, but that player actually plays the quarterback. And now we're talking about the quarterback of our defense, who's our best player. So maybe some players felt like that was some wrongdoing on the decision of the coach, regardless of who was right or wrong in the discussion of the tee and everything else. Nobody was there. The two players are saying what happened and whoever else was there. So I'm just saying I just don't see that being a viable reason. If you want to, you can still take a player and play him with those two incidents. If you're a coach.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's your opinion. Now, here from the coach's perspective, maybe the guy. Now, here's the other thing too. Mm-hmm. Had there been any other issues in the past with Jeremy Banks about missing practice? Had he done other things to get in the
True, very true. Don't know.
So we don't know that, right? So here's the other part. So let's say he misses, it's unexcused, and the coach says, "Look, I got to sit you. I got to send a message. I cannot have you missing practice, and then what kind of message am I sending to my younger players?" We got rules around here, and you have to abide by them. And again, I don't know if there was something else previous to that. I'll get back to your other question. If the only thing involved was stepping on a tee and an altercation with your quarterback, do I think he should be suspended over that? No. But I'm saying there was more than just one instance that occurred. So does that help answer your question about the stepping on the tee?
Yeah. I mean, I found it just baffling that if somebody would have got suspended for just that, that's just really, and that's, yeah.
And I don't think he was.
Right, maybe exactly. It's more to it.
Maybe he was on double secret probation and missed practice.
Well, maybe also his past history could lead to, hey, man, one more mess up. There you go. Mm-hmm.
There you go. And look, he's a good player. Now, having said that, he has not had a great year. He has not played nearly as well. Last year, he had 128 tackles. You know how many tackles he's got this year? 45. So, the 3 games he hadn't even started. So, he's a good player, but I don't think he's a great player. And I don't think he'd have made the difference in the game, my opinion.
Now, on to Hendon Hooker and how you thought he played, because there was times I thought he was a little out of rhythm there early on. But, and also what his career means at UT.
Well, he's done at UT. He's out. He's got the torn ACL. I did not think he was playing one of his best games. I think he was missing some open receivers. He was overthrowing on occasions. He missed Tillman, who was open. He missed Hyatt, who was open. It wasn't his most accurate game, but I'll say this. I have come to judge him on the curve. I'm so used to him being almost perfect that when he misses a few passes, I'm like, what the heck's wrong with Hendon Hooker? But, boy, what a great season and 3/4 he's had at Tennessee. Right there in the thick of the Heisman Trophy race. Now, I think his chances are gone now, but he was right in the thick of it. I hope he gets an invitation to New York. You got to be in the top 4 for that to occur. We will see. But I have nothing but great things to say about him. I think he's been a great quarterback at Tennessee, He's been a great young man. I made a comment to a coach the other day that used to be on Tennessee's staff. I said he's Tennessee's best quarterback, in my opinion, since Peyton Manning. And he said, whoa. He said, T. Martin won a national championship. I said, yeah, I know he did, and T was great. But I think this guy's a better passer and a more accurate passer than T. Martin. So, anyway, we had a little debate about that. But that just tells you how high in regard I hold Hendon Hooker.
No doubt about it. He done some great things there. Joe Milton now is the quarterback. Expectations for Joe Milton?
Well, it'll be interesting. I saw a couple of good things I liked in the South Carolina game. I saw him make some wild overthrows that concern me. I saw him run a couple of quarterback draws that I like. The guy can run. Now, I don't know that I don't think he loves running, but he can run. He's a big guy that's strong and he's fast. And I will be curious to see how Tennessee alters its play calling to suit Joe Milton. One of the things I've noticed about Milton, he seems to have trouble with the short passes. He either throws it 140 miles an hour or he overthrows them. And I'm thinking his better routes are some of the deep routes that he throws or some of the deep crossing patterns. But, gosh, it just looks like to me when he throws it underneath, he's throwing almost an uncatchable ball or an inaccurate ball. So I'll be curious to see the play calling in that game.
No doubt about it. We're in with Jimmy Hyams, the legend from Sports Radio WNML from 3 to 7.
It's interesting, Jimmy, and now Vandy winning a couple of games in Tennessee onto the backup quarterback. I mean, obviously Tennessee's going to be gigantic favorites in this game, but it has become at least a heck of a lot more interesting in the last few days.
Oh, gosh, yeah, in the last couple of weeks. So you got Tennessee. How did they respond? Look, you had the college football playoffs that you're eyeing, and now you get destroyed by South Carolina. How do you respond? And Vanderbilt, well, you beat Kentucky. And then you come back and you beat Florida, a Florida team that drilled South Carolina 38-6. You shut down Florida's run game. You got a punt return fumble touchdown, which certainly helped. You ran the ball well. Your quarterback Mike Wright's playing well. I was on a discussion with some folks the other day. They said on a 1 to 10 scale, what's your worry level for Vanderbilt? And the guy said 2. I said, hell, mine's 8 or 9 from Tennessee's perspective. I think this is going to be a really close game. I don't know what y'all probably seen the spread. I don't know what it is. But I think this is going to
17.
17? I see this as a close game. I think it's going to be a dogfight. Vanderbilt's feeling great about itself, right? And Tennessee's licking its wounds, and now they got a backup quarterback that, quite frankly, as much as I like his ability, I don't know how much I trust him yet. So I think it's going to be an interesting contest.
What's the best bold scenario case you think for this team now?
Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl?
That would be the best.
Yeah.
I think there's a case for that. It depends on what others do. Obviously, Tennessee has to beat Vanderbilt to be in that conversation. Tennessee hadn't been to the Sugar Bowl since 1990. They will bring 50,000 people to Bourbon Street. And some of them will make the game. Just kidding. And I know some people, well, Tennessee's not going to travel after they lost to South Carolina. No. They'll travel. They will go. They always travel. They do. They do an extraordinary job going to road games and to bowl games. And so I don't think there's any doubt Tennessee will sell a ton of tickets to the Sugar Bowl. So I think that's best case scenario. Probably LSU has to lose. You got Georgia going to the college football playoff. You got Alabama that's going to be in that conversation. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think that's best case. I guess the Orange Bowl is possible, but I don't see Tennessee falling beyond the Citrus Bowl. I think that's the worst case scenario.
All right. Jimmy Hyams filling us in on everything at Jimmy Hyams on Twitter, host of Sports Talk on WNML Radio in Knoxville.
Jimmy, just give me your broad view of just NIL in college sports. Your thoughts, good, bad, indifferent?
Well, I think there's a lot of good about it, and I think there's some that's not so good. Now, the good about it is we just saw didn't we just see a running back at Michigan, Blake Corum, say, I'm taking my NIL money and I'm going to buy turkeys for the underprivileged? That's
fantastic.
I did see that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of good done by college athletes who have shown more generosity than a lot of adults with the money that they have derived from name, image, and likeness. Also, the flip side of that, I'm hearing there's dissension in the locker room at Texas A&M with some of these incoming players getting significant NIL deals, some of the others not, and there's a big rift in the locker room, and that's one reason they won, 3 or 4 ball games this year. So I think there's some good and bad to it. I don't know that I'm crazy about seeing a guy sign a $2 million a year deal coming out of high school to go play in college. I think you should probably earn that once you got there. So I don't really like it as a recruiting inducement. I think that opens up a can of worms. But I do think that college athletes, and not just football players, I'm talking about all college athletes, should have the right to earn some money in college. I think that's okay. So I don't think there's a perfect way to resolve this, but I do think that I've seen a lot of good with NIL so far.
Yes, we went with Jimmy Hyams, Sports Talk, Sports Radio, WNML in Knoxville. I guess one more question for the game, and that is, I didn't see any false starts, but it just seems like the offense still wasn't in rhythm and flow at times. And I don't know if it was because South Carolina was, disguising things, was it the crowd noise, but still the offense just hasn't looked like it does at home compared to on the road. Do you see any of those things, or am I just seeing that?
No, they've averaged more points at home than on the road. That is a true and an accurate statement. Now, having said that, it's interesting that we criticize the offense for only scoring 38 points on the road. Hell, if Jeremy Pruitt's team scored 38 points, it would take them 3 games. So what we've done is we've raised the bar with the offensive expectations. Having said that, they have not been quite as sharp. They weren't quite as sharp against South Carolina. I think there were a combination of things. One, I think Hooker missed a couple of passes that he usually would hit. Secondly, there were some penalties. There were a couple of offensive holding penalties. There was an offensive pass interference. Typically, and I've tried to chart this, I haven't finished it, but I've charted this. Tennessee's drives are usually stopped by penalties or sacks. That's what gets them. If you look at it, those two things, if they don't score a touchdown, I'm not talking about just a field goal. If they don't score a touchdown, odds are, but a high percentage, I'm not quite to 90%, but I'm in that range right now. 90% of the time, it's either a penalty or I've lost my train of thought.
What stops their drives? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the stops the drive. It's either, but a penalty is one of, or a sack. Penalty or sack. Those are the two elements that are the common thread of Tennessee having one of its drives stopped.
Well, you just said percentages. It made me think about how many Tennessee fans are going to be at Vanderbilt. What percentage would you say? 80, 90? I don't know. What number are you going to give it?
Not as many as if they'd beaten South Carolina, I can tell you that. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think as many will travel. It's going to be a night game, 7:30. A lot of folks, if that had been a noon game, I think many of them would drive over there and then drive back to wherever. Okay. I would say Tennessee 3-1 on number of fans versus Vandy.
Well, Jimmy, no matter what happens, we know you'll be covering it and writing about it and talking about it on WNML. Always great catching up with you, buddy. At Jimmy Hyams on Twitter. People can follow you there for all the latest stuff. Thank you, sir.
Mickey, Blaine, thank you, guys. And, hey, don't step on my tea.